Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's been several weeks since I uploaded the last YouTube video. What I thought I'd do is talk to you about in more detail about backgrounds and overlays. I always thought a background was an overlay, but there is a subtle difference. So if I can just explain to you first of all, backgrounds are usually solid, usually the bottom layer. Now with overlays, they're usually transparent. So that means you actually overlay it, you actually lay it over your existing image and then using a mask, get the image underneath to peek through the overlay. And that is really the difference. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about in what way I prefer to use them. Different people have different ways, but this just happens to be my way. And if you decide it works for you, then that's great. So let's just have a look. Now I'm talking about this image here. This is quite an old one. Now this is the original image, and what I've done is I've done two different techniques. That one is taking the original image and putting it on a black background, but just by moving it. The next image is actually using select subject and using the select and mask, which is a much preferable way if you just want to move the flower from one background to another. So as I say, here we've got the original image. Let's just have a look at the first method. So this first one is purely selecting the subject and then moving. So select subject. It's missing some bits here, missing some bits there, but then you have to fill that in, and I think you know how to do that. And then what I've done is I've used the move tool. So let's just go with it as it is. So we go up here and we use the move tool, which is moving the image. So that's the one I've used for this particular exercise. But if we zoom in, and look at that, can you see? And it's quite rough around the edges. It's not a very good cutout, and you've also got this bit here that you've got to touch up, which you can do in select and mask. So that's just selecting the subject and moving it onto a background. Doesn't matter whether it's a black background, a white background. Okay, so the next one is where I actually did the same thing. Select the subject. And then what I did was I used select and mask. So we go up, select and mask. I used the usual settings and then brought it back into Photoshop. Now let's look at this one. This one's a lot better because I've refined the edges in select and mask. That's a lot better. So my method is, if you're moving the subject onto another background, it doesn't matter whether it's black, white or whatever colour, the best way is to select your subject and then use select and mask, so you can sort of adjust your edges. And I do use the same settings for those, which I can actually show you which settings I use. So let's go through that method again. Okay, so my preferred method is select, make sure you're on the layer, select, subject. And I have shown you this in previous videos. Now, the more the main subject stands out from the background, the better you will get the select subject. If it's a bit sort of like it's, you know, the images, the main images blending into the background, select subject will struggle a bit more. But having said that, over the years I've noticed this select subject has got miles and miles better. And I tried to find an image prior to recording this YouTube video where it was a bit iffy at selecting the subject. To be quite honest, it's making a good job every time. So with every update with Photoshop, these things just get better. So there we go. I've selected the subject, and now I'm going to go up to select and mask. So we've got all our bits. Let's just have a look there. I think I had a bit of trouble with that stem before. You see that little bit there? It hasn't quite selected it. So if we zoom in a bit, what I'll do is I'll take the quick selection tool and I'm going to press the plus. I'm just going to bring that down there so it selects. Press the minus, so it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. I'm not very keen on this select subject. This is what I like to mask my subjects. It's a lot better. I think we're all right everywhere else. Let's take it into select and mask. Right, so here we go. I've got it on grey. You could use, it depends what you want to use. We've got overlay, got the red one. It's a bit in your face, but it shows up all the bits and pieces you might want to change. On layers, that's the other one, but you have a job to see white on the back there. So I'm just going to use the red. It's a bit in your face, but I'm going to zoom in. Now we have got a little bit of white there. So I'm going to take the refine edge. Just going to go a little bit. Little tiny bit there. There's not an awful lot, to be honest. It's made a good selection because we're obviously selecting on a solid colour. Let's just have another little go here. Yep, on there. And a tiny bit there. And these are the settings. I've put remember settings because this seems quite a good standard one to use. So I've got it on remember settings. As I say, it depends what view you want. Got the radius on about 10. Click the smart radius. Smooth 20. Feather about 5. And shift edge -60. But you can vary that. It's up to you. You just need to mess about the settings, but those seem to be okay for me. So take it to a new layer. And then what it does, it gives you a cutout. But we've already done this, so we don't need to do it twice. But that's how I would do that. And if you can see, you've got a nice edge. You know, it's not too hard an edge. So let's go back to, so that's my original image. So I'm going to go back to open. Okay, so that's just how to do the select and mask. And I would prefer to do it that way. But as I say, if it's a more complicated image, then I would prefer to actually put an overlay on and then mask the image through, which I'm going to show you. So we've got, as I say, we select and move. I don't think that's a very good way of doing it because you get a lot of artifacts. Select and mask, although you can't see it here, it's a lot nicer way, a lot softer way of moving your image onto a background. So now we come to the overlays, which I really like this way of doing things because it means I'm more in control. I can actually bring into the image, you know, bring through the overlay the bits I want and leave the bits out that I don't want. So if you look at this, there is a video on YouTube showing you how to do this, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing again, but this is the image I started with, and there is the blurred background. All that is that image taken into Gaussian blur, and I think it was probably around 150, something like that. But you know, it's up to you as to how much Gaussian blur you want to put up. So that's the original image. The overlay was put over the top of the original image. So we press the move button and then we take it. This is all in my previous videos as well. Take the blurred background up to the original image, bring your mouse button down and release it. You get that, say okay to everything, and then it's slightly too big, just move it. We click on the blurred layer, bring the opacity down, and there you go, you can see some of the image underneath. Then you're going to put a mask on. This is all in my video. This particular one is on YouTube. So then you put a mask on, make sure you're on the black, say okay. And there you go. You can bring in the bits you want. This is what I like about overlays and masks. You can bring in exactly what you want to bring in and leave out what you don't. You know, bring some of this in. So I do like this way of working. Select subject and moving onto a background is fine if you just want to, I don't know, just move a piece of the image onto a new background. But I mean, this method, the masking can be done with a solid colour or with a texture. And that's the finished image. So you can see I've just brought little bits, brought the flowers in. This is how I like it. It's time consuming, and depending on how complicated your image is, it can be very time consuming, but at the same time, I think it's therapeutic. It's artistic, which I like, but it's entirely up to you which way you want to do it. But the more complicated the subjects that you're trying to work with, the more you're going to find that you won't just be able to select subjects. So if I go to this main subject, let's get rid of all this and just go back to the main subject. If I went to select subject, there's lots of stuff that it hasn't selected. All it's done is select the flowers. Now in that case, that's no good for me. But in that case, it selected the whole thing apart from little bits, which we did select with the tool here. That was fine. But for something a bit more complicated, like that, select subject. Don't get me wrong, Photoshop does it as best as it can, and it's miles better than it used to be. Because obviously we've got a bit of AI creeping in now. But this is the way I prefer to do things. So it's entirely up to you which way you want to do it. But I'm just sort of giving you my view of which way I prefer to work. As I say, if it's not complicated, then I'll do it that way. I'll select move, select subject, and then select a mask to give you a nice edge. And you can also, you know, do the bits in between that it hasn't selected. You can do that and select a mask. But if it's anything complicated, this is the way I prefer to do it. Much prefer that way. So I hope that's been helpful. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below, or you can send me an email, and I'll be quite happy to help you. Hope it's all made sense. I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.